the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. Coorong District Council acknowledge and pay respect to the Ngarrindjeri people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. We pay respects to all Australians who have made and continue to make a positive contribution to our culture and way of life in the country we live in and share together, Australia. Thank you, councillors. Sorry, I'm a little late. Ralph, I move to the next agenda items. Apologies. Councillor O'Hara, an apology, and Councillor Peach is still on leave. Unfortunately, even at this point, the results of the federal election have not been declared. Is that correct? So while he may be in the chamber, he's not sitting as a councillor today, but we await that declaration. Next item on the agenda will be acknowledgements. Julian Desmond has passed away a few weeks ago. Councillor Arthur, could you just elaborate on Julian's service to council in the old Canalpin Downs Council, please?
Passing of Julian, he was a long-time resident of Coalbatch area of Tintinara. He moved down to Coalbatch in 1971, so he was one of the original ones down there clearing that land, or some of it had been cleared. He left the job as the general manager of Sturt Football Club to become a farmer. So that's a fair change in occupation. He formed a Newton Pastoral Company, which has become a very, very well-established farm area down in the Coalbatch area. And Julian, of course, coming from the general manager of a football club, was very involved in all sports in the Tintinara area: tennis, cricket, football, and in latter life he served on the council, the Canalpin Downs Council, in those days, from the 1st of October 1983 to the 13th of May 91. During that time, he had 2 terms as mayor. As back in those days in the Canalpin Council, you were elected for mayor for 2 years in Tintinara, and then the next 2 years was Canalpin, and then it was 2 years Tintinara. So he did 2 terms. He did from the 4th of May 1985 to the 2nd of May 1987, and then come back again in the 8th of May 1989 to the 13th of May 1991. And one of the things was that Julian was a very good leader, and he was a very good mayor. But it's sad to see the passing, but he was in bad health.
And his family continues to farm in the Coalbatch area?
Yep, the family is still there, of course. Yep.
Thank you for that. The next passing of an ex-councillor and character is Doc Hanson of Tumanduke of its day. I suppose I've been the family's neighbour for a long time. To say Doc was a character probably wouldn't be a strong enough word. Very emphatic around farming, elaboration of stories, football, and perhaps the important part of this discussion in this council is he actually led with a late Oscar Guglielmin the moving of the 100 of Kirkpatrick from the District Council of Canalpin Downs to the District Council of Peak in the late 1970s. So he was into that sort of stuff. So Doc's memorial service was 3 weeks ago at Murray Bridge. I've got a couple others here. I think it's important we acknowledge Tess Judd, who is our ambulance officer, paid ambulance officer in this region, which does an excellent job. She's a Coalborough resident, and she received a 2025 Council of Ambulance Authorities Women in Ambulance Award. Big words, but basically she's very good. And from starting as a volunteer AMBO in 2008, she is now our Coorong regional team leader. So congratulations to Tess. The last thing I'm looking at councillors Qualman and Maidman. I just made aware as I was coming into town that Greta Bolt, a very long-term resident of Tailem Bend's, coming up to 100 in a few weeks' time. Was one of you councillors want to elaborate on Mrs. Bolt's service in this community?
I've been given the nod, so it looks like me, and I'm happy to do that. What a wonderful achievement. 100 years old is amazing. Mm-hmm. She was a librarian at the school here, and taught various subjects, and yeah, she was a taskmaster, but a very fair and good teacher, as well as a great and practical librarian. There's the playground, or one of the playgrounds at the school is now named after her, and it should be. And she's also heavily involved in the Anglican Church.
Yes.
So congratulations, Greta, and I might even pop over and see her.
Very
That would be lovely. So well done.
No worries. Thank you. Has anyone else got any other acknowledgements? Councillor Arthur?
Yeah, I did have Tess, but you beat me to it. Also, congratulations, I suppose, to Naomi Stidderford, one of our great ambulance officers down there, on winning the South East Bowls Championship, Ladies Bowl Championship.
Oh, Bowls.
Bowls Championship, she won the South East, and also for Mick Lawless from Tindanara, who won the South East Bowls Championship just recently. So that's a great feather. So they've won the A grade grand final and two, the male and female.
Individuals. Well, that's very good.
Sorry?
It's a very good result, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I just quickly lapse onto the ambulance service, and there was last week was a public meeting in Menangie, which about 50, 60 people attended around, I suppose, not the future of the ambulance service, but how can we get more volunteers into the ambulance service, and led by the leadership of the ambulance service was there. It's probably the biggest risk we have in our community coming is health and the withdrawal of health by the state government, and probably an issue we need to discuss as a council fairly soon in a workshop or something. But it was very good to see such a large turnout of the public at Menangie around this subject and where we can go from
Question
here.
on that though, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
Would I be right in saying the average age was at least 60 and over on average?
Are you saying I raised or lowered the average?
Saying that one of the problems we have with volunteers
It
and
is,
getting them
yeah.
in there is that the people who attended the meeting,
Absolutely.
if we could make it wider, not that it or anything, but it shows that, you know, we have the same problem.
Change in society. Yes, that's right.
And how do we address that? We've given away so much. How do we actually get any of that back so that young people are able to?
No, that's a cultural issue. If we'd come to the Rump and Red, I attended Saturday night at the Menangie Oval. That was a bit of a younger crowd. I felt quite senior, shall we say. So, any other acknowledgements? I move on. Declaration, item 3, declaration of conflict of interest. Anyone got anything to declare on this agenda? None. Number 4, confirmation of the ordinary meeting, including the confidential minutes of the 15th of April. So I move that way, please, Councillors Qualman and Maidment. Any discussion around those minutes? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Also, the minutes of the special meeting held on the 29th of April this year. I move that way, please. Councillors Bland and Rountree. Any discussion? There is none. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We have number 5, we have no adjourned business. Number 6, reports by members. My reports in the agenda, councillors. This question, Councillor Qualman.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. April the 8th, what caught my eye was the terminology saying boosting local government finance webinar. Boosting.
Yes, that's an interesting words, isn't it? Is that what it was?
Caught my eye.
What it was called?
Yes.
It was a webinar, so I watched it. Not quite sure I can recall it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry to tell you.
Just anything.
I just got back from leave by the look of it.
Oh, that's all right.
So it would have been something hosted by the LGA via Zoom, fairly open.
Just thought there might have been some more money floating around. Being hopeful, that's all, Mr
It's
Mayor.
floating, I'll be grabbing it. Councillors, you may, a couple of things. I did attend the meeting at Nildottie for a period of time, but then I had to go to Adelaide to meet with the Health Minister, as you might see down there below, on the 10th, but I trust you've read most of the comments in the MRLGA report in the agenda. We also had an online meeting with our 3 councils to our south end, being Narracourt, Lucendale, Tatiara and Kingston, around the drought, and just probably that was more an information session for them about our results of our survey, but the concerns that are now statewide on drought. And you'll see on the 16th, we had an opportunity with our council and the Coroonda East Murray Council to meet the Minister for half an hour around that same survey that was done, which our council had over half the responses in that 220 people response, which we presented to the Minister. Questions? I'll start with Councillor Rountree.
You sort of touched on where I was heading. I had, 2 questions. The first one was about your meeting with the Minister for Health and Wellbeing. And then following that, I wanted you to give me some more detail on the meetings on the 11th regarding drought, not because I haven't had a good look at the MRLGA reports. I'd like you to tell me what was the outcome from that. And this meeting that you had on the 16th with the other councils, where do we go from here? So what was the outcome and what's the follow-up from all of that?
2 parts, health and drought, right?
Drought, yeah, I want more information on that.
With health, I think, I haven't put this to anyone up here yet. I think council needs to have a workshop fairly soon around where we're going with health in this district. Several other factors are starting to build on the issue at Canalpin and Tintinara, in my view. So that would be my first comment. At this stage, our regional manager was in the meeting with Minister Picton. Fair to say he dominated the meeting.
He what, sorry?
He dominated the meeting.
Dominated the meeting, yeah.
So I'll leave it at that for the moment. I think we need to have a discussion and a workshop for an hour and a half on this. My view has now become quite clearly that our council is now facing the same issues as all other broadacre regional rural councils in provision of health. We've probably been not avoiding it, it just hasn't come to us the same as a Coroonda or a Lameroo Pinaroo, but now it's coming to us as well. Second thing is drought. Very good work done by our council officers. It started at Coroonda, but as you know, we share an officer with Coroonda in for some jobs around the drought survey, which we've decided to make sure we get to the appropriate people, including the Minister. Because it appears that perhaps nowhere else in the state is a study done of farmers, or a questionnaire perhaps, around what they're feeling. Now, we need to put that in context. It was last December, I think, that survey was done, led by our staff. So
That would be different now.
well,
I think the
yes, I think
interviews
it would be different now. Now, the second point is I'm the LGA's nominee to the Drought Advisory Group, which is a PIRSA-led group, which I report back in effect to the local government association around. And the point of that is that the government responds perhaps in some ways to pressure from that group, but in some ways to pressure from industry groups. I think at this stage, and I must thank our own council staff in particular, but also Karen McLeod from MRLGA for the work she's done in the background. The question remains, what does council do around helping people with drought? And where we've ended up, and I might just acknowledge the LGA, but James Hollyman in particular, who's handling this in LGA, is trying to find a way of providing a method of allowing affected businesses and farmers to defer their rates for at least a year with no penalty. And the genesis of this is to sort of bring that into a controllable group A and find out who would administer it, how that would interact with the Local Government Act, and the basis of this would be that the state government would effectively lend us the money at no interest for the people we cannot get the rates, who would apply under our policy, our hardship policy, to get out. So in terms of our normal rate payers, or normal being residential, the hardship policy still applies every day to that. I made a presentation to SAROC last week around this subject, which was endorsed, and SAROC will now be working with Primary Producers SA and their policy offers, their new policy officers from the District Council of Kingston, she's a councillor there, as well, around what model we can put in the next couple of months to the state government. One of the issues that comes out of this process is, and I'll be interested to get the dates out of our business, is, as you would know, in the budget, we collect over $500,000 in landscape board levies, and we're still obliged to pay the government even if we cannot get the money from the farmers. For example, which has been a long-running issue in local government. So the model's been worked over the next 4 to 6 weeks between PPSA, LGA, I suppose myself, to see what model we can come up which would involve a deferment of rates. And I need to be really clear with this. It's not a remission, it's not a rebate, it's just a straight, I suppose, no penalty deferment process. And there's people who think that's not good either. The point might be, look, Councillor Arthur's looking at me with that look, that there's rural ratepayers, plenty of rural ratepayers that are paying 20, 30, 50, 80, one told me yesterday, $90,000 in rates. If they could effectively have a deferment of their rates for a year, you might think how useful that money will be in going and surviving this drought. I know that loads it on the other end, but I don't think. But the point would also be our council has, considerable exposure with 71% of our rates coming from rural. There's quite a lot of smaller councils that are at 85 and 90%. So what would happen to councils if people could not pay their rates? They would just fall into the process of fines, penalties, which they'd be nervous, obviously, they wouldn't want to do. So would it not be better for the state government to assist councils, assist them for 1 year?
Well, the problem with adding fines and penalties, Mayor, is that if they can't pay their rates, they're not going to be able to pay fines and penalties either.
That's right. Well,
it's compounding their problem.
The broad question, even out of package 2 of the state government, is around a $20,000, up to $20,000, but you've got to match that. So it's a $40,000 project, or up to 40. So you've still got to put money in to get some out.
Which they don't.
And the general commentary is that, well, where's that, who's got that money to start with, is the general commentary. So this is a model where the rural rates of South Australia are maybe in the order of around 200 million. If 20% of that was deferred for a year, that's 40 million. If that was 40 million at 5%, when at $2 million in a potential. Also, this process would allow councils to not be affected in terms of their LGFA processes, in effect. That's the intent. How that comes out in a form in the next 6 or 8 weeks when we sort of find all the edges of this process, I don't know, but that's the intent. And I will be going to the LGA's half-yearly meeting on Thursday night, particularly to talk to other mayors about this. There's a secondary issue I might just add. Other mayors have spoke to me in the country is about how still no one has really declared a drought. Now, we don't declare a drought for a purpose of an administrative purpose for getting money, but there's still people in the service industry that are waiting for a declaration. So I'm hoping on Thursday night to have a discussion with other country mayors. Perhaps we should jointly just declare a drought.
I think so.
Because it appears others don't want to. And that seems to be the biggest criticism at the moment of the state and federal government, is no one wants to use that nasty word, although I do note that in the last 3 weeks it's been drier in New South Wales, even in Victoria, all of a sudden it is a drought.
Around Wagga has just been declared a drought last week, but that area.
The harsh reality is, I've got friends over there, is that they had a pretty good season last year. And so what's a drought, what's not a drought in rural communities has always been the subject of a problem, determining. All I know is that we've had a failed 23-24 summer rain season, a failed 24 winter season, which is our growing season. We've had a failed 24-5 summer season. So far, this season's failing pretty rapidly too. So, and as was pointed out by the Mayor of Bidmurray to me at a function last night, there's people in her area who've had probably 3 failed winter years, and that's quite true. So, about trying to get a joint good story for councils to go on being sustainable in our cash flow, the state government to acknowledge it by helping us with some money, and I think just acknowledging the drought. I might point out that one of the issues that comes out of this is that we would be proposing at this stage that within certain criteria, council's rates officers or council staff manage this, which puts more pressure on them and may therefore require more admin support in businesses like ours. The state government probably has no particular easy way of assessing processes. So that's that. Yeah.
What's the hesitancy from the state government in
We
declaring it
haven't
out?
put a proposal to them yet. The ministers.
Why is he not just doing it anyway? It's obvious.
Yeah, process will just take time to brew up. So I won't say it won't be misused. It's about finding a way that people who can't pay rates in the short term in one industry group, in effect, can defer. Now, one of the biggest risks identified by LGA staff and myself is will this be used every year for a whole lot of other reasons, or in a strange way, it might be an opportunity to use it for industry development. It'd be quite interesting. So, and how does it clash with the standard part of any council's process of rates falling into arrears?
So my next question through you, Mayor, is at the moment, we would be receiving the last of the quarterly rates from the last financial year.
On the 6th of June, yes.
So I would imagine we may see some impact on paying that last quarter in some cases. So that's the first part. But the second part is the work you're doing at the moment, will that be done in time to offer relief for the 25-26 financial year?
I don't know the second part because I have no way of knowing the state's process. Apart from we can put a proposal in front of them, I'd hope in the next 6 weeks, hoping, but it's in the LGA's hands. It's not really, at some point, I'm not the driver of it.
I feel that things need to happen more quicker than what they are, because the urgency is today, not in a year's time.
I would anticipate now it won't apply to the 24-25 rating year. I just can't see how it can. It'll be almost retrospective. So, but that'll be up to perhaps the councils and their hardship policies if there's enough width in this, and the state agrees. This just involves the state being a bit of a banker for local government for a year or two, and there's some risk there that it might be 3 years. I don't know that yet, but really, when you work out the amount of interest, it's actually not a lot to put that money back into rural communities. Just on that, some other councils that have been in drought longer are seeing a fair bit of fatigue in their ratepayer base right now.
And that was my concern about this last quarter. How
in particular.
exposed is this council in the last quarter rates for the 24-25 financial year?
Well, we're as exposed as we made some allowances for back 6 months ago,
We're
CEO.
monitoring it.
Well-
And it's one of the things that we're monitoring very closely. We didn't see anything in the third quarter, but we're expecting we might see something in the fourth.
I'd imagine there's a fair cohort that pay all in one hit, and so that wouldn't matter. But those ones that are paying quarterly, we might see an issue in this fourth quarter.
Yeah, but we did make an allowance for that back in December. I think this council did, but the point of this is to effectively support council's business in terms of cash flow, support the farmers by leaving them with some cash, and for the state to assist rural areas of the state. I might just add that if it goes by number of assessments, some of the highest numbers of assessments in the assessment books, I think all councils except the City of Adelaide rate on the same basis now, is some of the near Adelaide councils. They've got an enormous amount of primary industry assessments. So in a political sense, I'd like obviously to keep it as wide as I can early so that I get the support from the people in the near Adelaide group.
Adelaide Hills.
Well, the Adelaide Hills, for example, yes. Councillor Bland, sorry.
Now I'll follow on with that one, and then I'll go back to. In relation to that, and I know this is a hobby horse of mine, is that what I would call tier one is the rural sector in terms of particularly farming districts. The tier two affects all of our towns, all of our small communities. It's the roll-on effect for the trucking industry. It's the roll-on effect for the small businesses where all of that cuts down. What happened in previous times that I'm fully aware of is loss of people from our district. They have to move, their jobs are cut, they leave town, and it's very hard then to attract them back. once you've lost those families out of town, we're in a growth period at the moment, and we may actually see that change slightly when people can't find work that they have of the roll-on effect. I think there is a tier 2 to this that needs to be monitored and watched over time, because they also will be hurting whether they're going to pay their rates or to stay in the country, pay petrol to get their kids to wherever they need to be a part of a community. So there's a whole roll-on effect, and that affects the rural families as well as those who live in the small communities.
So there's significant debate in SAROC around this and whether it should go to all residentials as well. I'll just probably reiterate my view that probably the residential group can be picked up under any hardship policy of ours at any time.
Residential and business, small business.
Yeah, but the five small business and commercial categories, I would think, and that was, I think it's from my memory of the SAROC minutes, says that they'll be picked up in that because they don't form a lot of dollars rates in most of the rural councils.
However, they do form the heart of many of our communities.
Yeah, sure. So there was a bit of a debate around that. I'd expect that would be part of the deal.
Okay, I'll just go back.
Yep.
Minister Picton, and I've heard all sorts of comments in a relation to this, and it is disappointing to see the continuing degrading of our health services. And to be quite honest, and I'll say it bluntly, I have very little faith in the executive office for this area, and we need to be proactive about what's happening now.
Yep.
We are seeing a whole range of services slowly disappear. And what happens then is the answer that you will receive is that, well, nobody used the service. The reality is it's near impossible to use a service that is near non-existent as it's slowly withdrawn.
Yeah.
It's by stealth. And if we are not proactive, our communities also have another reason to leave, and that is there are no health services left across the Coorong in general.
So that's why I think we need to have a workshop, probably an hour and a half pretty soon around this, because there's several legs to this. There's no particular secret. I understand that the medical practice at Meningie is on the market for sale, or will be. Yeah, and if that wasn't successful, that would force a different issue, very large issue, but I've also been made aware that the hours at the Tailem Clinic are being cut back, 3 days, I've been told. So I think we need to have a discussion as a group of councillors and staff around where we plot our way forward next in relation to this problem.
I think in terms of that meeting, we need a little structure around looking at some of and addressing some of the issues and how we might address them rather than having just an open discussion.
Yeah, that's right.
We need to actually put some
We need to do
borders
so.
around it.
And I'd acknowledge your work done by everyone. I think Councillor Arthur started with the Minister about 3 years ago at Bordertown, but Councillor Peach in particular has done a lot of work in this area. It appears that we can't push through the regional bureaucracy.
And I think we should also ask the role of the HAC, with all due respect to the lovely people that are doing all of the hard work and beating their heads on doors and getting nowhere. I would like, it was always a concern many years ago when they were created as to how strong they would be allowed to be. Quite honestly, we're now seeing how they are not allowed to be, even though they have willpower and compassion, it is not, they don't have the strength they need.
You put it very well. But that's my thoughts on that in the last few days. There's my two principal subjects. I'm still in my report. Councillor Arthur.
Mr Mayor, can I just make a comment on that too?
Yep.
Spent half the time on the phone coming down here today regarding that. It's not just the health services, it's the auxiliary services now that are absolutely disgusting. And you know, it's supposed to be a health issue and a welfare issue for the old people. And the sort of, the last meal they got was delivered from Murray Bridge. This is at Tintinara. Was delivered from Murray Bridge, cold, not heated up. And it was just an absolute disgrace.
Yep. I've received a letter around
that
particular circumstance. So that's where I think we're at, where we've got to.
Effectively,
I thank everyone for their work so far in this space, and I see your Councillor Peach is in the back of the chamber. But we're now in the, I think we're now in the position that a lot of country councils have been over the last 20, 30 years. Well, not luck, it's just the way it's been. Half avoided it. Now we're just falling straight into that group now. We need to have a strategy around how we tackle this politically and for our community, because it's fairly obvious that the government system is just pulling back to basically a Murray Bridge-based model.
Yeah.
That is, the delivery of services gets decreased when people can't access
Yeah.
them. No difference to the transport. Now we have meals being pulled out where they were delivered from Menangi. All of those things. How long before then the Menangi Hospital potentially loses its meal service itself? And we have them delivered from somewhere else, you know, and that affects a whole range of other
Right.
issues.
And
So
just to
it's a
wind it up.
roll-on effect and you need to be aware of it.
So at the Menangi ambulance public meeting, I think the figure was 38%, no one else was there. 38% of ambulance work now is transfers. And
We're not allowed to
the
do anything.
workload being effectively put on ambulance volunteers to do the transferring work to make health system, from the health system's view, more efficient, is unacceptable.
If they
Last
were
figure-
paying for that time, they would be
Well,
looking at a
well,
different.
they're not paying our volunteers that.
No, but
And
what am I saying? If they were, then that would be a cost they'd have to take
That's
into
right.
consideration.
Two volunteers did 4 trips out of Menangi, one on one shift.
Yeah. So the system is utilising, the ambulance service is a subset of the Department of Health. It's not directly responsible, but it's being, I won't say used,
Exploited.
it's being used to make other parts of it appear better. Sorry, I'll probably want to wind that up because it's a long mayor's report today. Anything else while I'm on it?
Can we just agree that we're going to have a more of a
Well,
chat?
if you're all
Yeah.
happy, that's the path I've sort of been thinking
I
about
think
the
we
last
have
40,
to set a plan.
40, 50 hours reading about, particularly I received an email a couple of days ago around that failure of a community health or community get-together process, in my view.
Look at a date.
Look at a date, councillors. Okay, anything else in that one? Thank you. There is no councillor reports this month. All right, petitions, we have nil, item 7. Item 8, deputations, we have nil. 9, I have no public question time. Yeah. The Peach is in the back because he's a member of the public today, but he doesn't get to ask a question. Number 10, 10.1, decision reports, budget review 3, the recommendation that we adopt the attached budget review 3, which has been through, I think, both Audit and Risk Committee and our own Finance Committee's discussion. Someone move that way, please.
I'm happy to move it, but also just have a couple of questions.
Yes,
I can pick up.
I'll get to the seconder. Councillor Qualman's the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, your questions are.
Yeah, so on page 13, which is, 13. So the 25,000 savings in professional service in the rates and finance area and also governance, just explain that how that saving was made.
With the savings, the finance minister, the finance staff members aren't here today. They've got I think it's just a savings from memory. I'll take it on notice, but I think it's just a savings on, we get quite a bit of professional help around some of the things that come through governance, like legal advice and that. And from memory, I think it's really just, we didn't spend as much as we'd budgeted for, so we thought we would move that money out at this point in time because we're 3/4 of the way through the year.
Thank you.
And the same comment is for both. The budget was set at a particular amount. We haven't gone yet spending it, so we've just realised those savings and brought them out.
So then the 20,000 extra for subscriptions, I would imagine subscriptions are quite consistent. So how did we get 20,000 difference?
That, I think, is just a change in the lines. And there was one subscription that was missed last year, and from memory, I can't remember which it is. Most of our subscriptions are around the 25,000 mark. And again, I'll get you more details, but I'm pretty certain there was one that was not included at some point in time.
Thank you. And the other question was, so we talk about 49.8 thousand transfer from discretionary to non-discretionary contractors for street cleaning expenditure. Just what does that mean?
That was we've moved it from discretionary to non-discretionary, through you, Mayor, sorry. Auditors suggested we put it in non-discretionary because it's a recurring expense. You could have it in either. There's really no set rules. We're just following what the auditors suggested. There's been absolutely no change in it, just a category where it's put. Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Arthur, yep.
just further on, Councillor Roundtree's question about the subscriptions. We've got Murray, Mallee, LGA and Limestone Coast. We don't pay the Limestone Coast anything. We just associate
Right,
members.
yes, we just visited.
So where is the actual expenditure?
I don't know what the Limestone Coast refers to, but we have about 5 or 6 ongoing subscriptions that we do every year. MDA, it's one of them, the
RDA, the Tourism
RDA,
Association.
Tourist Association.
RGA and then the LGA itself.
Yeah, but the Limestone
I know,
Coast.
yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
pick-
not sure what that refers
Yeah,
to,
we'll
but
pick, we'll check we're not paying them as well,
we don't.
No, no.
even though we can beat them in bowls.
Exactly.
Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Page 13 of the hard copy, 190,000 Black Summer bushfire payment to Telstra. Was that some grant money still held aside, or that's our money? How does that work?
That was a timing issue with it was all supposed to be finished and done with last financial year, but as you know, there were some backwards and forwards with the contractor about the performance, and we withheld some money, and that was the final payment.
Thank you.
Just might add in passing, I don't know that we're actually that happy with the job at Colbatch.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
So it's
Well, I
working.
think it's probably,
Is it working?
well, to say it's working will be a strong thing. I'm looking at Councillor Peach at the back row, my little projects I think we've got to go back to.
The South Australian Director of Telstra is coming through in about 2 weeks' time, and he's meeting with us.
All right, there you go.
So then the question on that is repairs and that has to be done. Who
Their
takes
problem.
responsibility, given that we handle the money, and who sorts the problem? I mean, obviously, we're not getting very far.
Well, then, just let that process go for the moment. At the end of the day, it could be a technical issue, it could be who knows? But at the end of the day, I think we have a responsibility as the auspicing money through process. But barring that, I presume we've got a telecommunications ombudsman sort of process to pursue around public money at the end of the day, if really what was done was not within a cooey of reasonable. That's where I think that will go.
So does that, through you, Mr Mayor, does that require us looking at the original contracts and going back
Well,
and see
it may,
before they arrive?
it may. But there's been, in amongst that, there was the changeover of 3G to 4, of course, which sort of may have affected it. We're in the unhappy camp on that one, we still are. Other questions before we have a motion? Receive and note, I think. Any other questions? Any other debating point then? Recommendation is that we, pursuant to the Act, Regulation 9, Council adopts the attached to Budget Review 3. No debate, no discussion. Councillor Rountree closes. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 2, review of sundry debt levels of sundry debtors, and councillors would be aware that this has also been to Audit and Risk and also to Finance Committee for consideration. They've both recommended that the recommendation. Someone move that way, please. Councillors Maidment and Bland, the mover and seconder. Is it Councillor Maidment, you want to start on it at all, or?
Oh, I think we covered this the other day. I'm happy to move
Yep.
this. Now the figure's actually correct. That's good. Thank you.
The correction you picked up has been picked up, yes.
And I don't mean to be nasty about any
No,
of
no,
that,
no.
but yeah, no, that's good.
Councillor Rountree, you have a
I
question?
I
or-
do have a question. It just popped out at me. So on page 16 or 27 of the electronic copy, in the chart where we've got additional waste services and then it's got services withdrawn, then underneath on the next page, it says where a sundry debt exists and the debtor is also a ratepayer, the debt is linked to the assessment, so the debts can be captured on the settlement of the sale of the property. So there's 2 questions. I didn't think we had any historical data for waste services, and that we seem to have some data there for waste services. And also, when the property was sold, because it says the property is sold, why didn't we recover the debt at that point?
That's what you mean. Those 2 last ones, they were found, they've been sitting on the system for ages. We have no more information than that. And it's not worth us digging any further to have a look what they might be. We know that that's all we know about them.
That the service was withdrawn.
And we're not able to recover from the new owner. So those things have been looked at, but in reality, there's probably no point in digging any further with those because the system doesn't give us any information. It would mean a trawl of manual and systems to find any more detail on those two.
So, but when the property was sold, why didn't we recover it then?
That's exactly what, we don't know the answer to that. So we,
Oh, okay. Okay.
Other questions, councillor Qualman?
Thank you. I'm just repeating councillor Rowntree's exact question I was about to ask, that's all.
Beat you to it.
You beat me.
So through you, Mr Mayor, the follow-up
Plan.
question on that, to these questions really is that ensuring that we've got our process in order to make sure that on sale we receive, I know we fully discussed all this.
that's a completely different system now.
Which is also why we've got a process in place around rubbish fees now, bins and grandfathering for a year. Other questions? Right, councillor Maben will close.
Close.
No. Well, it is as the recommendation is in the agenda, councillors, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 3, Bendigo Bank Community, the Keith Branch, Meningie Information Hub licence, sorry. There's a recommendation when I find it. Why I slipped over that one. Sorry, councillors, I've got a bit of a paperwork mess going on here. That one. And the recommendation is that council approve a licence agreement with Bendigo Bank, Community Bank, Keith and Districts Branch to occupy an office within the Meningie Information Hub, our building, 1 day per week at a cost of $50 per week. And the licence agreement will be for 2 years commencing on the 1st July this year. Councillor Bland, are you moving that way?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree, you the seconder?
Yep.
Questions? Speaking to the motion, which would we do?
Good result.
Result?
I think generally it's been received particularly well. And it's good to see that they're interested in staying.
Yes.
A huge
Yeah, that's
benefit.
encouraging, isn't it?
No other questions? Councillor Maidman?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one. The Bendigo Bank people there have had the waive of fees for the last 2 years. Do we risk losing them now? We're going to charge them $50 a week.
Don't
Don't think
imagine so. Miles, please.
To the chair, they were more than happy with the $50 a week.
Okay, thank you.
And I understand they have distributed some funds or
Oh, yeah.
profits or distributions to community groups, which has been
Yep,
very
They're
good of
very
them.
good.
Cool.
Working out as well as we could hope for.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further debate, close, councillor.
Opposed.
Put the motion as it reads, the recommendation. All those in favour? Against, that's carried unanimously. Number 4, draft Murray Mallee Regional Plan Council submission. Perhaps, Miles, do you want to briefly speak to this, which has quite a lot of implication, but in its first iteration, the way I read it. Please, first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think when I think about the digital plans, including the Greater Adelaide and the draft Murray Mallee Regional Plan, it is somewhat of a revolution in South Australian strategic land use planning. You know, it'd be very similar to the introduction of computers and what that enabled planners to do. And this is the next revolution. And as the first tranche of these plans, I think it's important to let them settle in, and over the next 3-4 years to work with other councils and the department in maximising the potential from a digital format. So as I say in my report, I didn't go through a deep forensic analysis of the draft plan. It's very clear to see that the work we did with the growth strategy is reflected very clearly in the plan. Apart from November, December, which I fed through to the department in the report. And that's being reiterated by other parties that have interests in lands in Tintinara and here in Tailem Bend. The beauty of all this is that we're promised that at any stage that we need to update the plan, that through formal processes we can do that. So if we move forward with code amendments, rezonings, we can ensure that the plan's there, ready for us to use, and we don't have to wait 4 years for the next version to achieve what we need to achieve. So I think it's a really exciting environment to be in. As I also say in the report, something people might not be thinking about is other users such as school students, university students, and the general public. They all of a sudden now have the opportunity to dive into a digital planning environment, use that to learn, to inform themselves, and potentially also to influence the places they live in.
Got any questions perhaps before we get to Councillor Bland?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just get some clarity around the ability to make changes or adjustments as needed or to add on? Should there be land identified, Canalpin, Meningie, anywhere? How difficult will that be in relation to this plan, and what sort of time framing are we talking? I think it's really important for people to grasp that, because change happens fairly quickly sometimes.
Thank you, Councillor Bland. I cannot give you a definitive answer because the mechanism hasn't been formally developed by the department. We're expecting that very shortly for the department to explain exactly the process we go through. They have indicated that if you've got a growth, as a council, if you've got a growth strategy and you've identified a strategic planning initiative such as a code amendment required, that information along with a rationale, a business case to support it, and the policy wording can then be fed into the regional plan and through a fast track process rather than, taking 2-3 years.
Wow.
It's indicated that it'll take about 6 months.
That's pretty reasonable.
That's what the indication is. It still require community engagement. So in accordance with the engagement charter, and there's a community engagement charter in the Planning Development Infrastructure Act, that tailors community engagement according to the scale of the change. So that still would be required. So some of the processes are similar to the old development plan amendment process, but because now you have a recognition of growth strategies being a valid and important instrument, and you have a regional plan that is connected directly to a fast tracking code amendment, and that wasn't the case previously. I think the mechanism there is there to achieve code amendments within 6 months, but I will be cautious. It relies on the department having the resources to manage processes at their end. They're working really hard to do that. But I will just be a little bit cautious. I mean, the first council that goes into the system and tries it, we'll all be watching eagerly to see how quickly and how easy or difficult it is. But we want to hold the department to their word and the minister to his word. He said, process, if you deliver A, B, C, and D, you'll get the result.
Okay.
We'll politely hold them to their word.
You'd probably think that because the state is on a fast track growth trajectory, you would think that the constant review of the process, as Miles described, would be right in the department's eye, so because they want to, move forward quickly. So it's probably, they've got their trainer shoes on maybe a little bit at the moment, and as Miles says, we keep them to account, but that will also help them, I think, refine their services and processes.
Thank you.
Any other questions to Miles before? Pavement.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and through you. Just with the Tailem Bend housing targets paragraph, and it says in there about the group has 4 for Tailem Bend, and we think it should be 347. Do you think that's a bit too much, and are they likely to change it?
We don't think it should be 347. We think it should be 10 to 30. That's 347.
10-year projection. I think.
Yeah, 10
10 years?
So they're
Okay.
saying 4 a year. That's 347 over 10 years. So
Yeah.
I'm saying, 30. And I want to understand where they get 4 from.
Mm.
Okay,
So
Exactly.
in fact, the department has an open session in the
I
hall.
thought that was today. Yeah.
If we get the chance to pop over there at lunchtime, I'll pop over there. But either way, I want them to, and this is not just us. In the draft plan, there's other towns throughout the region who have similarly, low numbers, very, very conservative. And what that does, that reflects then on the region's total population target. And I think with the growth of Murray Bridge, Tailem Bend, I just feel we should be having a target. We should plan for a target that is on the higher side. It's easier to scale back if you start seeing the trend not achieving what you planned for than having to rush through infrastructure because all of a sudden you've got this incredible growth. And you see that in Northern Adelaide with infrastructure such as SA Water.
Yep.
Whereby, there's all these houses being developed and they don't have a sewer. And there's people who are carting effluent from septic tanks in areas that should be sewered. So I think we should be planning within this region and within regional South Australia for where there is obvious growth occurring for, the medium or the stretch target.
Okay, there's no more questions. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Moment is the mover. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland. Okay, is there any discussion? Councillor Moment, you want to lead?
No, I've asked my question of this. I think it's a good document and let's move forward.
Yep. Any Councillor Coleman?
Thank you. Just a comment that I'll try and do my best. As I can see it, it's a vast improvement, and as it says down the bottom paragraph, it's a substantial improvement on the previous static plans, which did not have the ability to be updated. That's a great step forward. And the other thing I'm hearing is this information will be more readily available, and this should help the council in dealing with other authorities of the government and regarding our other issues we've raised before, like health and so forth. They can see there is growth happening, and we should be looked upon more positively by this information, which wasn't readily available, so is now going to be readily available. It's a great step forward, and I would encourage a greater investment avenue, as I see it too.
So councillors, thank you. I just note, CEO just, Miles just said, there is the planning commissioners next door in the hall in a minute, at 11:30 to 12:30, 1 o'clock or something.
1:30.
1:30. So we will see how we go with this meeting. We might have a little adjournment at some point and sneak over there. There we go. The rest of this agenda is pretty straightforward at this stage, councillors. Anyway, said that before. Okay. Got a motion moved by Councillor Moment, seconded Councillor Bland. Is anyone want to debate any of that? There is none. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. We move on to the next groupings are all acceptance of committee minutes. Finance Committee minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of May. I'll move that way, please. Councillors Rountree and Bland. Any discussion? There's not. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 6, the Audit and Risk Committee. Special meeting held on the 13th of May, 13th of May, special meeting. Can I move that way, please? Councillors Qualman and I need a seconder, Bland, both members of the committee and doing really well. Is there any discussion, councillors? I missed something, Ash?
Sorry, no, it wasn't a special meeting.
It was just a regular meeting, sorry. Mayor.
They're all special. Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 7 is Councillor Bland. Number 7, Coorong Local Action Plan Committee minutes of the this is a special meeting because it's a fair way back. The 17th of June 2024.
Can I ask why they're a year late?
You can ask. I don't know if I've got the answer. I'm looking at the CEO.
Um,
No.
No.
Fair enough.
Be that as it may, we can accept their minutes now. Councillor
move
Arthur,
that
are you
way.
moving that way? Oh, thank you for that. Oh, is there a seconder?
Was present.
Yeah, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Number 8, the Coorong District Local Action Plan Committee meeting minutes of meeting held on the 6th of May 2025. We've caught up. Can we move that way, please? Councillors Rountree and need a second still. Maidment. Any discussion? What a fruitful early discussion I attended with the CEO around drought. Right, putting the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Number 9, Murraylands Riverland LGA meeting held on the 10th of April 2025 at the Neil Doddy Hall. Lovely little hall. I need a mover. Councillor Qualman. Seconder is Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion around those minutes? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? I'm going to take that as carried unanimously, councillors, or your arms are getting sore or something. Murraylands and Riverlands LGA's 2025-26 annual business plan. Is there a mover for that, please?
Just
Councillor
another.
Arthur, and is there a seconder? Councillor Qualman. Taking it that you may have a question, Councillor Rountree.
Oh, just that we endorse. Why? Just explain to me again why we don't just receive this and we haven't. Why are we endorsing it? Is it appropriate to endorse?
Ashley, please.
Through the chair, section 43, the annual business plan needs to be endorsed by the subsidiary councils.
Okay, thank you.
Questions and queries?
May you yourself and the CEO attend these meetings. Do you feel there's any gaps that we're not addressing? Besides drought?
And childcare and health.
Childcare and health, well, health, yeah. I guess I'm pretty hot on the health side of it as well. Or
3
not
years ago,
sufficiently.
the previous delegates to the group, which were the previous group of mayors to this council, decided to, I suppose I'll call it, rev up the organisation a bit. Previously, it was effectively a secretariat role, and now it's a full-time position.
Very active.
In effect, with Karen McLeod. If I was to reflect on that being only one of 2 that are still in the room from the last lot, we've done exactly what we intended. I would note that some other regions have quite different operating models, and because it is not in the constitution of the unusual, that's why it's a regional, section 43, 43 subsidiary. I think we're achieving as much as we could hope for with the present staffing we've got, and the amount of work that our executive officer does support all the councils in different ways probably goes unheralded unheralded in my view. She does extreme amount of work in connectivity and work and research that she's very good at. So yes, I do think it's worthwhile. I think you only need to look at the process that we're now instituted in terms of waste management with a regional contract, which has helped contain costs in that area. I'm well aware we've lost one of the two staff that are managing that, but I think we're in a good spot for where the present 8 councils want it to be. It'll never satisfy everyone, a whole lot of reasons, but I think we're probably doing pretty well.
So do you feel that we now have more of a say at government level,
Yes.
a higher level than we used to?
Yes, I would say that.
Felt we were a bit toothless before.
Well, yes, because I suppose it was more constrained before in terms of being more a secretariat than an executive officer view. The Drought's a good example of that. But yeah, I think we're just warming up. I think we could have done more, say, the wine grape price crisis previously as a region. Although I think where it probably worked is in terms of our regional response around the floods. We had 5 new mayors north of us along the river, all new mayors, even though they just about all come as from deputies positions. But the amount of support that Karen put in place in the region, and the Mayor of Karoonda and myself went and visited people to support them in that change, because they were elected and in flood immediately.
And I
Now,
think,
people can be critical of that, but as a region trying to support, several of our members, that was a fairly tenuous time. It was a very tenuous time, in fact.
yeah, I'll acknowledge all that. The other question I have then is moving forward is around health. Given the change or the differences in the diversity of the ability to provide health services, you have a smaller area, you have larger hospitals. When you look at the Riverland, we have 1 major hospital in the Murraylands. And I see the fact that we have distance as an issue and being dealt with similarly as you would if you were in perhaps even a Riverland area where services are much easier delivered. I'm not saying all their services. However, I think when dealing with this issue at this level, we need to be looking at it with a slightly different lens than across the board.
That's right. And so it's an area I haven't endured a different funding piece around something miles. I'm looking at what they were asking for, some funding support. I did not endorse it as a mayor in that room, which means our council is not doing some project. And I'll tell you why, because I feel that the way that the bigger regional health thing is going, they're basically, treating us with a bit of contempt right now. I wasn't prepared to go along with what their ideas were.
And thank you for that, because I agree. If we continue to go along with it, we'll still be at the coattails.
Yeah,
We won't be being looked at as an important part.
So the greater challenge is, the regional centres of Berry and Murray Bridge. Are we just going to allow them to dominate and everyone goes there for medical? That's what you're saying, and that's why perhaps we should have a good long workshop.
And that's why
first.
people will fall through the gaps.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, anyone else with questions in this area? Being none, there's a recommendation there. Where did it go? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. We move to 11.1, Office of the Chief Executive Officer's report. Will someone move that way, please? Councillors Rountree and Qualman. Questions? Councillor Maven, sorry.
No, you're right. Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I have a general comment. In section 3, community development grants, it's so good to see that there are no outstanding acquittals. I know I've talked about this in the past, so it is wonderful to see that everybody's caught up.
That's true.
For you, Mayor, that is thanks to the hard work of the staff involved with that. It is a lot of chasing.
Thank them for that.
Council, we visited the Canalpin Golf Club. Got an active little group there. Yeah, one of their leaders passed away recently too. The great golfer, one of the Fawcett family. Oh, so yeah. But yeah, it's good that we've wrapped them all up. on top of
You know,
that.
it just makes it easier to give
Absolutely.
more grants out,
Well,
potentially, to the same groups, if possible, if they do
that's
it.
right. Our policy
you know.
says that.
Yeah,
But I think it's just whether we follow up in the current environment with people, rural people enjoying paperwork, we might call that. Any other questions in the CEO's report? Councillor Qualman?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, you might be able to help me too. I don't know if you attended, but the CEO's got there on the April the 30th, Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program. It was at the RV park at the golf course.
Yeah, I could not attend, Councillor.
I could not attend either. How did that go?
But I think Councillor O'Hara did on our behalf.
Yes. Yep, we, both the CEO and myself were there, and it
You
went
were, right, there you go.
particularly well. They have their pad ready to go, looking at growth. The shed is finished. Their second one for their golf carts, looking at that growth. We took the opportunity to have a look at their barbecue area in the centre of the golf course, which some may not be fully aware of and is well worth a look. Council has used it previously for an event. But yes, and it was well received that council were in attendance.
Yeah, I couldn't get there like you, Mr Mayor.
Perhaps I could reflect on that allocation of 240,000 of LRCI money the last round. I think it's been very well received and allowed 14 separate clubs. I think we spread it around to do some darn good work in bits and sometimes in tidy up and this and that, and sometimes in building on grants. And I think that's worked out pretty well. Councillor Arthur, you got a look of a grim look.
Under community engagement, I see we got the Apex Park revitalisation, childcare, early education. When I was going onto the council's website on Saturday, I saw there's a thing there for the RV park. No one in Tindy knows about it. We're doing a consultation regarding the Action Club and the RV park. If you haven't got on the website, I haven't seen an email or anything about it. So what sort of area are we sending that to?
I don't know, about to ask the CEO.
I will have to take that on notice. I don't know. I can't answer that.
So,
Okay.
You can, thank you, Miles.
So obviously this relates to the Action Club's approach 1 or 2 months ago to lease an area effectively RV park. In order to, council's not able to just deal with one body and say, yep, that sounds like a good idea. Let's enter into.
Yeah, I know what it's
But
about,
yeah.
but why haven't the community been informed of it?
So in order to test the waters effectively, if there's another group out there that has an interest, that's what this consultation is about. And I'm pretty sure, even though there might be a gap between when this was first raised with council and now, I'm pretty sure that we would have informed council that that is a process we need to go through.
So just to be really clear, we're talking about the piece of land north of Lake Indawara on between Northcott Terrace and silos in that general area.
Yeah,
That's been that is the disc golf and the RV. I was thinking is on the other side too.
Yeah.
So, so it's a process. But you're right. We need to be follow up.
Councillor Arthur is trying to suggest is that we
We
and
didn't
the
know, so-
community weren't, like, it might have been something, but then when we get asked about it, we don't know.
We'll
So just an email, we just say, we're sending this out so we know.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, you got another one?
No.
No.
Cool, thank
Okay. Everyone's any other questions? Okay, the motion is there. Moved by Councillor Roundtree, seconded by Councillor Qualman. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, Community and Corporate Information Report. Councillors, is there a mover? Councillor Qualman, seconder. Don't rush me. Need a second to Councillor Roundtree. Thank you. Questions?
Just so, yes, through you, Mayor, I have a question.
Hmm?
Under the section 41 committee list, I'm just wondering why the recommendations from the pool committee weren't added into that list. I know most of them have been done, but it'd be nice to see them in there and then see them marked off as completed. So I noticed other things from like the Tintinara Hall Committee were included in, they wanted an awning. And so to me, it would seem appropriate that what the pool committee have asked for goes in that recommendation list as well. Is that where it should be parked and marked off as done? So we keep a record?
Through the minute, yes, generally. Can go back and double check to see if we've missed anything out.
Well, there's 6 things that they put in their last agenda or their last minutes that were recommendations. Now, most of them have been acted on, but I would have thought that we should possibly include them on that list so that we can then put action in there as well. So, and it was the things like the induction process, the new chairs, the 2 new chairs being numbers 3. The fact that they wanted the fees and charges left the same was a recommendation that the get a $2 per head entry charge. So there's some things on there that were like repairs of the stools, for instance, that could be included. Anyway, if someone could just have a look at it, and I guess it's
Wasn't in the last meeting?
no, I noticed it
right,
hadn't
wasn't it?
come up in the action list,
Yeah.
and I sort of feels like that's where it
Okay.
should be parked.
We'll deal with it.
All right.
There is some crossovers in an action list.
Well, the last one was like the playground sprinklers to either start earlier in the morning or later at night. So to me, that would be something to go in the action list.
Through the chair. Last month that were checked off as completed.
The last agenda,
Yes,
and this was in there then.
yes.
So are they being removed when they're taken out when they're done?
So we
Okay.
marked the chairs as completed, the sprinklers, the swimming pool fees and charges, bits and pieces like that.
So we don't keep it not like we do the other one. Right. So once they're done, they're gone. Right.
They're
Okay.
not gone.
Well, on record, but they're not presented like we
Not
do with the
gone.
other one.
But
Okay.
they're not going to be repeated infinitum.
Rightio.
Okay. Anyone else, councillors? There's no other questions. I'm going to put the motion. Receive that report, receive a note. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 3, roads and infrastructure report. Councillors? I'll move that way, please. Councillor Rountree and Councillor Maidment, thank you. Questions? Councillor Rountree?
Yes, so there's a picture in there of the nature park and it has a metal railing put around it. I want to know why we weren't consulted about that, because a nature park by its name is meant to be there without these sorts of metal safety barriers. It's sort of like it's a nature playground, so it's making it look like natural stuff. And now we've got ugly
We've got some safety.
safety railings. Like there's lots of areas in there that probably would be considered not safe, but why have we just done that? And was the community consulted about whether they wanted that put in there or not?
Josh, you got an answer?
Through the chair, I would imagine it's because of a WHS incident or near miss, but I'll take it on notice and I'll come back to you with an answer.
Yeah, it sort of ruins the aesthetic of what that is supposed to be. I don't like it.
Well, at the same time, our insurer may say we need to do something. So we need to be
That whole
careful.
park
We need to
by-
be careful that we haven't got basically unsafe things.
But that whole park, the way it's
I know.
designed, is
At least
So,
I
like,
can't get on the
either we're
flight.
going to have a nature park or we're going to have a park for clumsy kids.
Playgrounds and council oversight of it are interesting subjects.
Also, just on that,
Right.
how was it even identified as an issue?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
Through the chair, I'll get background information, what advice we received and why we undertook the action, and I'll put it in an email.
Yep, thank you.
Questions, councillors, are in the report? Councillor Qualman?
It's, well, the comment, if I may, Mr Mayor, looking in the report to Tanara Footpath Expansion Project that the 1.8 high metre fence has been installed from along the rail corridor and connecting the rail crossing to Apex Park. So
We're getting there, yeah.
it's very good. Yeah.
ARTC added some more fencing, is that, I'm just looking at the project manager at the
Yeah.
back, he's nodding the head.
Yeah.
So we're getting there as an example of a cooperative process with ARTC, which we look forward to for other towns, councillor.
Yes. Hopefully that will continue.
Maybe, yes. Councillor Bland,
Through you, Mr Mayor, does that path meet requirements these days for disability and access? And just looking at the photos of it, and I haven't been on site, is that the edge looks like it's got a drop off where the bitumen actually meets the dirt.
got a lot of nodding from the capital projects manager, but
And
I'll
I
ask
guess-
the director if he wants to nod with him or whether we bring him up.
And my point was that is it is an area that could be at risk for particularly elderly people if they're using. I'm making the assumption that this is a general use path, therefore.
Yeah,
We'll refer to Joel, he's just joined us on
Thank you, Joel.
the mics.
Yes, through the chair, yeah, there's some final top up to occur to those edges. We've still got a bit more asphalt work to do, so once it's all done, it'll be all topped up. Notwithstanding, the path is 2.5 metres wide, so it's substantially wider than your normal footpath. So risk of getting near the edge of it's pretty low in a single person using it. So, but notwithstanding, we will top the edges up so that there's a
I'm
flush
thinking it
finish.
become much more a through park where you see bikes and number of walkers and bikes and prams and stuff walking along there eventually, and therefore having that marked appropriately in the long term. But however, yep, it's good to know that it meets all the requirements.
Other questions, councillors? Councillor Rantry, you'll close. Okay, put the motion number roads that we receive and note the report from Roads and Infrastructure. All those in favour? Against, that means it's carried unanimously. Going along, councillors. Questions with notice. Have nil. Questions without notice. Councillor Bland.
I have a few, Mr Mayor, so bear with me.
Hmm?
My first one is if you could please advise the status of discussions with the minister or their staff regarding the progress of the library at the Meningie Area School.
We might want to deal with that later with sensitivity around that we want to deal with.
The school, I attend the school meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
As a general comment through you, Mayor, the discussions with the Education Department are ongoing, and I spoke with them last week, and they will undertake to come back to me within a week or so.
Thank you. Timeframe is all I need. Thank you. My second one is, has the gutters on council buildings been cleaned and assessed in all our townships? In Meningie, I'm particularly looking at places like CCI, the council office and Wadmore buildings. Given that it's about to rain, fingers crossed, I'm sure that there is leaf litter in there that's going to cause problems and has done in the past. So I'm early, make sure our buildings have been addressed in this way.
Through the chair, so there are periodic inspections of our buildings, not to the extent where they're getting up on ladders and checking gutters and so forth. That said, as part of the upcoming asset condition audit for buildings, there will be more detailed review of gutters as well. If there's particular requests, we can put in CRs to have them assessed independently.
I think my question is around regular maintenance and inspection of them, not what is done as a part of the asset. I don't want to see them in a position where we have damage because we haven't cleaned them or looked at them even. And we have old buildings and we have buildings. I know the office has a tree sitting out the front of it that often clogs up and a range of things without having to respond as an emergency. Nobody checks Wadmore House for this. And we have a CCI building, which I accept that has a large roof and height, but the office building is quite low. Even I could probably climb that ladder
Yeah.
and have a look.
So,
I wouldn't, but I could.
we'd probably have to get a further response around if and what our checking regime is. That'll be an elevated tower issue, I'd imagine, with gutters as well. Just trying to work out the CCI might be part of the least they are responsible, unfortunately.
I don't think so.
No, well, let's check that out.
It would be internal, yes, external. I don't think, I would
Yep.
believe that to be correct.
Yep, just need to follow up with that.
My third one is on the southern shelter in Lions Park, and we were looking at putting a wall, a weather wall in there with a gutter line, and I'm wondering where and when that will be attended to.
Looking at,
Look at the manager, the capital projects. I suppose if I could make a general comment, the reason for not having.
Through the chair, and yes, a general comment, once we get a few project related commitments under control in the next month or so, we can look to get the elements for that shelter sorted out.
If we could think about it, councillor, in the most broadest sense, I appreciate it might rain one day. But the elements of having gutters in parks with trees is that they fill. And so, you know, probably the broader
Gutters in
question around gutters, if we could go to that.
And shelters that have been built
Yeah.
without a gutter where you get wet because there's no wall is
Yeah.
also a problem.
I know, but at the same time, at least we won't have the block gutter. So it's a bit of a challenge around gutters and block gutters and design. That's what my point would be. But I know you're interested in the subject.
And through you, Mayor, we've had a position vacant for almost 12 months now that we've gone out to market 3 times and have been unable to fill.
That area.
Number 4,
Yep.
the Narung Jetty. I know that councillor O'Hara asked for a report on that. I don't believe that any councillor other than councillor O'Hara has received that report, and I would request that it be circulated. There is a lot of discussion happening in Meningie and Narung at the moment, and there's been some discussion about a consultation, whether it is a projected list of who will be have some consultation with or not. However, I would like to know what the consultation process will be, with whom, and could we please have a copy of the report?
That's for you.
So
Mayor.
you go.
We are nowhere near consultation process yet. We're trying to figure out what the extent of the issue is with the jetty. And then it would be a matter of coming back to council for you to make a decision about how much money you want to allocate in a budget for the repairs of it. We don't know the full extent of it. We haven't had anybody, as far as I understand, in the water yet to look at it. So we're a long way from coming back to you to say what the actual extent of the damage is. Joel, do you have an update on that?
If I might before then ask, then are we actually intending to get more than one quote?
Well, at the stage,
Again-
council, we're not even at that point. We had an indicative quote, if you remember, some time ago, which probably scared the pants off us. But for some reason, this cat's got out the bag, and it's one of the jobs I've got later today is to find out where it's gone to.
Well, it's gone a
Because
long way.
Well, you don't know why yet, and that's the job we're going to do later today, to find out where it's gone and why it's gone. Council's made no financial commitment at all. I think what we have said is we've got to do a fair bit of work to find out what we're on about there.
through the chair, councillor Bland, the initial condition report and photos were sent out to elected members on the 7th of April of this year. So is that the report you're referring to?
I was under the impression there was a second report. I may be wrong.
No, the only second report was we asked for guidance around whether the jetty should remain open, given the state of it, based off the condition report. That was going back to the consultant and just getting their professional opinion. So it wasn't a report; it was just based on your condition and your expertise. Should the jetty remain open, or should it be closed from a safety perspective?
So the follow-up question would be what is the intent around public consultation?
As I said, Councillor, through you, Mayor, that is not anywhere near. We haven't come back to chamber yet for you to get your view about what you want to do with that jetty. If the damage is extensive, then it's a discussion in the chamber about the budget you want to set to it. Do you want it replaced, repaired? None of that has even come back to chamber yet for you to have a discussion about. We're still in the preliminary investigation stages of how extensive the damage is.
And,
Thank you.
And maybe I will refer to Joel because he has been talking to some stakeholders already as part of this work.
Through the chair, so I think you could consider where we're at as pre-consultation. So we are just trying to be proactive and reach out to as many user groups that might access the jetty, use it for whatever reason, be it sailing, fishing, SES, what have you. We've reached out to groups as far as Clayton Bay, Goolwa, Meningie groups, and at the moment, we're just relying on word of mouth. So if a group's been missed, it's not been intentional. We are more than happy for a group to be made aware to us, and we'll reach out to them, send them the information that we've got. What we are trying to do at the moment is just get an understanding of the usage. That's all we're trying to do. Who uses it? How often? Does it need to be that big? What else could be on it? And then we can look to start building a scope of what a replacement repair project looks like. And at the moment, we're a long way from that. So once we get to that point, then we'll go, I'd like to think full public consultation. Here's some options. Here's how it could look. Here's what budget implications are going to look like. But we've got a long way to go before we're there. So we're not trying to, we're just trying to gather information without scaring everyone off with price tags and things like that, because like if we're to replace it in its current footprint, it's going to be enormous, an enormous cost. And I'm acutely aware of where we're at as a council in terms of absorbing $1 million project, for example. There's very little grant funding opportunities for jetties and things at the moment. We're keeping an eye on it, but at the moment, we are just trying to find out who uses it and how often and how they may like to see it.
And what I might add to that through the chair is the intention is we came to council in a workshop or a briefing setting. The first question that we'll get asked is, well, who's using the jetty and who's, how important is it to the region? So by having a bit of that information when we come back to council with options and costings, that's part of what this first step is.
I guess the comments that I would make on that is, and I'm not disagreeing with your process overall, but obviously there are people in groups out there that feel like already they've been missed out. This information is out there, and I mean, I haven't seen what was sent out to them, but there are groups already talking, saying, well, why are we not being consulted? So I haven't been asked for a list as a councillor for that area, and I don't believe any other councillor here has been asked for a list of potential users or who may have used it. The Narung Progress Association is certainly a strong group out there, and I've certainly had discussions with that group.
Through the chair, Narung Progress Association reached out and we provided them the information that everyone else was given. It was just a short 7 or 8 question survey just around how often it gets used, that sort of thing. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because we're after usage here, and you know, our first thought was boating groups, fishing groups. There's I guess a southern region fishing CEO. We've reached out to him. We've missed a couple groups, and that's not intentional. It's just relying on a bit of word of mouth. Just to, if there's groups that we've missed, we're more than happy. We're not in a rush to. We're about to go and pull it down next month and rebuild it. That's not where we're at here, because if it's a project, it'll be a 20 project, I feel, and we've got a fair bit of work to do to build to that point.
And I might make another point, the boating facilities fund's probably available for this at some point, but that has quite a long...
No, through the chair, we've looked into that, and the boating facilities fund is only available for launching facilities, so boat ramps. So we were aware that was open and started the application, and then you get down to what sort of facility you're looking to apply for. Yeah.
Not a wharf.
No, it's specific about boat ramps only. So
jetties are being funded elsewhere.
Well, jetties,
Partially.
one of the greater joys of the state is that the jetty debate stays on the coast as a
Yes, it
general rule.
does. And it's a,
And seems to be very focused on metropolitan coast. And one of the issues with us being on the coastal alliance is making sure that and this is a discussion in MRLGA around the river community, also feels like it's a bit more difficult to get funding under that one, given the pressure. And we would be watching carefully that the state government doesn't use the Boating Facilities Fund for jetties.
and I'd be watching carefully on that one as well.
Yes.
But I think the other thing is that there is not, in relation to the lakes and Coorong, in terms of the safety between Lake Alex and Lake Alexandrina and Lake Albert, it's an essential jetty at its point where it sits in terms of safety. So I think from that point of view, Pat's got out of the bag. We need to make sure we've covered as many people as possible. And I would like to see the 7 or 8 point survey sent out to councillors as well.
Certainly. There's
Thank
a
you.
project for me later today to find out, because I have received the letter, which we'll respond to. Okay. You have it.
I do have one
more.
but I may bring that up a little bit later. And that is in relation to a letter from, in relation to health that was received by eventually received by Councillor Page. And he has forwarded that out to us all.
Yeah. If I may, it prompted a discussion I've had with Councillor Peach around that. And that process is part of what I think we need to discuss in the bigger picture about what happened with that event. It wasn't a council auspiced event as far as I know.
No.
No, and Councillor Arthur alluded to it earlier in the discussion we had.
Yes, and that is only one of the many things that are happening, services that are being decreased
That's right.
across the area. And how we look at that bigger picture is going to be absolutely important. Are we going to respond as a council to this group that have asked Donahue to write the letter and that we have now, or Councillor Peach has now received on?
With Councillor Peach's permission later today, we'll deal with it in the back. I just think it's from council or by council will be the subject.
To you, ma'am. We also have to, and maybe Councillor Bain, you know the answer to this, but I suspect there's the Commonwealth and the state involved in the funding for that particular meals in the community. I'm thinking that there's probably some auspicing from an aged care perspective at the national level, and then SA Health in some way in terms of delivery. So we need to understand that too, to decide what we would recommend to you from an advocacy point of view.
Look at that.
Yeah. Other questions? What are we? Questions without notice. Sorry, councillors. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ongoing problem still here. How are we going on, or what are we doing, and how are we dealing with the issue of Little Corella problem still there in plentiful amount?
To you, ma'am. We have a meeting with PIRSA who are coming through
Friday.
Right.
Friday about it.
I was rang by someone from Vitera yesterday. I haven't talked to Josh about it yet. There's a meeting Friday out
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping one of us or I can't, but many
Yeah. There'll be council representatives.
council representatives there.
Okay.
They're from the email that's been circulated, they're going around to a number of sites throughout the state, looking at different initiatives of how different treatment options. That'll form part of that paper that the state government's working on.
Thank you.
Are they left yet or are they still
No.
in town? They're taking their time this year.
Then
They've
come
left
back.
Meningie.
I'm waiting for the rain.
Yeah, that's what I think they're doing. Right.
Mr. Mayor, there may be light at the end of the tunnel though, as I had to take a gentleman down for cancer treatment last Tuesday, and Flinders University Oval is absolutely covered
Are they really?
in the Corellas, and I've said all the time, we need them to get into the city, start getting into
That's
the big
right.
gum trees around Unley, Toorak, all these areas,
Come back.
and all of a sudden there'll be something done. And I reckon there would have been a mob of 600, and they were chewing up the Flinders University
Councillor Cormann, and that is that you're watching them hanging off the wires out the front here and the corners of the buildings and that. In terms of the responsibility for I mean, they're obviously not electrocuting themselves, they're not spanning, but damage has to be huge in the long run. What can be done about that and who do we talk to?
Well, I think it comes down to managing an overabundant species, councillor. That's
No, I'm
where it
thinking
sits.
about the damage, not,
Well,
I'm
well-
aware there are no abundant species. It's what about the damage to the buildings and.
Well, it comes from a maintenance issue for us or for SAP and
It
whoever.
will be.
But at the end of the day, until
Us as well.
the powers that be acknowledge that a reduction in the brute number of them is a requirement to save our mental health and our facilities, pretty difficult subject. So I think I've put some faith in Professor Scanlon, I think she's a professor, in pursuing a animal reduction thing with a humane way. There are a reasonable amount of people in our community don't want us to reduce their number.
They've also hit Mount Gambier too at the present moment,
So
so
the more
everywhere.
the more they hit, the more likely we are to get a response, is probably my harshest judgment. But yes, so councillor, it's on Friday, yes. I was run by the Viterra bloke
And
yesterday.
what I would say is that what we've noticed, and we've certainly been letting off the gas guns a lot more, when we're seeing them across the road in particular, is the trial that's happening out of Viterra is moving away from Viterra and around Hale and Bend district. But we've heard from Viterra staff that as soon as the program switched off, birds come back and they're back there again. So they're not migrating away from the area. They're just it's almost like they've learnt that, oh yeah, we can't go there during the day, but we go back there at night.
So stupid.
It's so smart.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Still in questions without notice.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll just question regarding the new terms and conditions of the application form for community grants. We talked about it in March last year, how onerous it was, and then it was September, but then in September it was too late to do it because we called for community grants. I'm just wondering when the staff will be presenting new forms of
revised
because, you
form.
know, like it was more onerous making out
Okay,
that the community grant for 5,000 was a $4 million
Yeah.
grant.
a lot to get the
So
form.
can we make sure that is
Right.
instigated?
Just have to take that on notice, councillor, at this stage, please.
Yeah,
Right, other questions?
yeah,
Without notice.
just one through you to Josh. I believe you had a phone call from one of the complainees on the Torna Hut Road, and he thanks you for ringing back. I wonder if you'd just give us a little bit of a rundown on what his conversation was.
Councillor, I don't think he spoke to me.
I thought he,
Yeah, maybe it was Dean or one of my.
I thought he said
staff.
Josh. I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm not ringing a bell with you, Joel.
We'll take it on notice.
No, I'll take that on notice.
He was very surprised to get a phone call back from one of the staff members. So
Well, that's very good of him.
yeah,
Okay, I'll find out who that was and I'll let council. Yeah, it may have been Dean or even Travis.
yeah.
So yeah, okay.
No worries. Thank
Okay,
you.
other questions without notice, councillors? Being no more, we move on. 13.1, motions with notice, I have nil. Motions without notice is 13.2, councillors. Motions without notice, 13.2. I have nil. Number 14, minute action list, councillors, questions around that? Minute action list, questions?
My computer.
Councillor Roundtree?
Yes, I have a couple. 31824, when we're looking at the alternative safety options for the morning swim, it has a review date of September. And I'm just wondering, should we be doing more of that work now before the season starts rather than right up? Because what does it normally start in October?
Sorry, I will just answer that the workshop this afternoon will involve responses from other councils as to what they do out of hours. So I'll add that. I'm sure Josh has got something to say.
Yeah, through the chair, I thought that the season started in November, so I put that date as September. They gave us a couple of months, but happy to bring that forward
Okay,
a couple of months prior to the season opening.
right. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was October, but I could be wrong. I think if anything, it'd be the end of October, but,
But happy to bring something back a bit
right.
earlier to give time, give council enough time to consider and make a
yeah,
determination.
and get that in place. The next one was 26124, the Canalpin Hall. Is there any delay in getting that up and running? Where does that committee sit?
Through the chair, my understanding is that there are certain aspects of the current draft terms and conditions, or terms of reference that the committee aren't content with. And,
Aren't content?
are not content with. And that Ben's in the process of organising another meeting.
Can I get a copy of that? Just and what areas they're not happy with?
Well,
So I thought we'd nutted out some.
What I would be expecting is that there'll be another meeting, and I thought maybe Councillor Roundtree that you might attend that.
Happy to if I know when it is.
Well, we'll take that on notice.
And the last one, 2624, the desktop review of the caravan park. I did send into council some ideas for a survey. And I'm happy to just send that out on my behalf, and I've got some ideas about where it can go and how we can engage people at the post office to get as many responses as possible.
For you, Chair, I could suggest that we're not ready for a survey yet. We still haven't finished conversations with the Crown about what they want to do and how they want to do it. And we need to finish that. We have a meeting with them on the 2 weeks' time, I think it is, around that very issue, but it is, we're not at a stage of survey.
From council was that you had received advice from the Crown saying it had to have broad community support before they'd even consider it, which is where we'd left it at. So I was unaware there was another meeting in 2 weeks'
We've
time.
still not finished the discussions with them about how they want to do that.
Councillor, I refrain from sending anything out yet until we are sure what may be available.
So
And Crown Lands moves at a certain pace that's not quick.
I understand that, which is why I'm keen to see
Yeah.
this move forward as quickly as possible, because if there is an option to reevaluate that area under a precinct plan, then I think that's, the last I heard, that's where we sat, and that's what we were going to do.
We're not finished that, so you mean, we're not finished.
We need to be very exact in terms of understanding what the Crown want consulted upon. I don't think we're absolutely clear. So, as CEO said, we have a meeting with the Crown where we seek that absolute clarity. What we're doing here eventually is, if we proceed to the end result, is asking the minister to rededicate a parcel of land. I would expect the minister then to have very specific expectations. The questions that were asked, the survey, how it was conducted. And I'm not even, at this stage, it may very well also involve a question as to, okay, you want to change the dedication of land that's been reserved for cemetery purposes. The minister may very well ask the question, what is your parcel of land that replaces that? So we've got a lot of work to do. And in order for the process, it's very similar to planning and development matters that go under consultation. There will be a very specific process to follow, and if we don't follow that, it'll hold the process up, which is going to be a very long time frame anyway. I would be suggesting 2 to 3 year time frame at best
Does it not help your situation if you've got the community already having an idea what they would like to see the land use, or does that not have any sway with the Crown as to, I mean, there's plenty of land there for cemetery, we already know that.
If you get the process wrong, it may actually work against you. So you absolutely, again, there will be a very formal process that the Crown will, and the Minister will expect to see. I would expect it'll be similar to, be tested against the Community Engagement Charter and the Planning Development Infrastructure Act, so it'll be under that type of basis. Until we know exactly what their expectations are and exactly the process that we have to follow, it's very premature to be even just, and I will actually say your work, Councillor Roundtree, is extremely good, and you've put in a really good effort. The one thing I would not like to see is you put all that effort in and it isn't in accordance with the Minister's expectations. So we need to find that out first, and then we can first work out what are the steps we need to take so that we're taking them in a.
So I thought we'd already, through, with all due respect, I actually thought we'd already done that part from what we had received before. I've actually got some more questions around this, but I'll speak to you, Miles, offline about that, about some other ideas.
I suppose we're just being particularly careful, given that they haven't been that excited about doing it. We want to, I suppose, maximise the opportunity for them to change their mind at some point. So
I just wish we hadn't have made an issue out of something that was never an issue and have put ourselves on this trajectory to have to do this work, because at the same time it is taking away a lot of useful space for RVs and big vans that is blocking up other areas, and it is causing a problem, and it's not. The residents of Canalpin aren't happy and they would like to see this move quicker than 3 years.
My point, councillor, would be that this is a rededication of Crown land process at the end of the day. So let's, since the meeting's organised, go through that first.
Okay.
I'm still in minute action list, I think. Sorry, councillor. Councillor Bland.
10624 Wadmore House requests for formal removal of encumbrance. Sorry to bring this up, but we're getting close to June, which is the next review date on this. And I'm wondering, I thought we had agreed to that, where that's at the moment. Has there been further discussion with the Minister or his people in relation to Wadmore House?
discussion with them late last week, and I'm just waiting for another advice from them about where they're up to with the incumbents and the Minister.
So June actually is looking like a good time now.
So, as you would see, councillors, through lots of things in this business, we don't know when a state bureaucracy, a minister, a federal bureaucracy, we just don't know. It's very difficult, because I understand we can have raised community expectations. Reality is, we always have to wait. Doesn't matter how many times we speak to the minister, it appears it's a process.
But I predict that with health pulling out its services across, something like Wadmore is going to be an absolute essential space.
I'm aware of that. But those silos don't talk to each other either.
Don't doubt that.
Which, yeah, I'm still in minute action list, councillors. Councillor Arthur.
Yeah, what I can't seem to find on the action list seems to have drifted off, and I think it's pretty urgent that we get onto it, is the residential housing, which the council owner.
In a later report today,
At
councillor.
Tidanara.
Later report today.
Sorry?
A confidential report.
Because
Not that one.
You're talking about the airport.
No.
No,
Sorry.
this is because one of the others is going to be vacated. 2 years,
I know which one you're talking about.
and a double bed unit, a beautiful unit, and the other single one where unfortunately it's got to go into a care. So I wonder how long before we're going to get some more action on that.
You're about to get an answer.
In an area that needs
Sure.
rental accommodation.
Sure, but I think you're about to be given an answer by the director.
It's a very, very complex area legally.
I realise, yeah.
And our property officer, Justin, has been working closely with both our solicitors and the Department of Ageing and Wellbeing, and even the Department of Finding bit perplexing as to
What
what
advice?
to do here. Suffice to say, the people who currently occupy the units have security of tenure, will continue to have security of tenure. So there's no loss there, but yes, you're quite right. We've got units that are not occupied at the moment. We're doing our best to work through with the department and our solicitors. I would suggest maybe we can come back with a report in June or July. It's complex.
You know, I just think we've just got to keep knocking on the door there.
We do.
I know it's pretty hard,
Yeah.
but you know, you can't have an accommodation you can't use in a town where there's, at the present moment, there's particular industries looking for 10 houses to rent.
That's right. But
So there's some confidential information that I wouldn't like to share. Whilst we're in a public meeting, so we, in a confidential environment, we can give a further report.
Okay. The other, yes, sorry, the other one was just the, I can't get the number because I don't know, my thing comes up wrong. Curbside waste recycling, green organics. It's got it down as a completed, but the point 3 was note concerns regarding the additional curbside collection service and requested a further report be provided regarding how additional bins were historically allocated and charged for. That has not been done. So that action should not be on the completed list.
there's a report, either last meeting or meeting before around this.
Let's just,
I'll just check on that again,
this is
but I'm
from-
pretty sure,
yeah, this is
pretty
from
sure there's a report that.
this was the January 25, and then it was the infrastructure and asset. It was moved by you, the motion, Mr.
Did I?
Mayor. Yeah, so we haven't done that point 3 of the.
Yeah,
It's just looking into how
Yeah,
historically we
But
missed
how-
out charging people.
understand that. Try me.
For you, Mayor.
In the report that was recently tabled where council agreed to the grandfathering,
Yep.
agreed to the process, in that report or in parts of discussions, we explained that we couldn't establish where the decision was made to not charge. So we went back to.
There was never ever a decision by this chambers to make, so
Well,
don't charge, so
or
don't
where-
blame
where
the
it-
chambers.
Where a decision was made by administration, there was nothing on record that we could find that was a point in time where we stopped charging for it. And that was reported that was discussed when that report was tabled. So we don't have it, I guess we don't have an answer, but we tried our best to address that, in that report. That's, yes.
That's the point. And that's, you're right. So
Not even-
grandfathered in the position on in 12 months' time.
Okay, we've missed out, but what about the historically allocated charge for? Because they have been up
Well-
until probably, I don't know, probably 2 years ago, I don't know.
Well, there's been various incarnations of arrangements. I think we put a line under them, and by that motion, we've given a grandfathering clause for the next 12, 13 months, as far as I understand it, and we will start again. Sometimes whatever arrangements were in place before, been at the time, but I don't know, it's not worth pursuing it, I don't think. And I think the minute and the council's motions carried that, we're at that position. But trust that we're going to let that one go. I'm still in minute action list. Okay, we move on. Councillors, I'm going to seek your advice. Well, there's an opportunity. When are we technically supposed to be finished today before the next workshop, please? 1.
One.
I'm going to seek an opportunity. So lunch is at 1, technically. I'm going to seek your advice, your position. We have got a planning public consultation in the hall next door, is that right?
Yes, it's,
So I'm thinking of whether we shouldn't take maximum of 25 minutes, otherwise back here at 12:30 as an adjournment, just so we can go over there and show our face. That'd
Yep, I think that's.
be polite. Councillor Moment, you can have your refreshment like you do. What do you think, councillors? We are down, and it's to the public's benefit. We have finished the normal agenda, that we would be only in the confidential part from 12:30. Would that be a reasonable outcome?
Yep.
Yes. Do I need an
Sounds good.
adjournment motion, Ashley? I think, yeah, I think we could. I think it'd be actually very good if we actually appeared next door for a little while, see what they're up to. We're just seeking that formal motion. Someone please to adjourn the meeting till 12:30. Councillors Bland and Qualman till 12:30 today to complete the confidential items of the agenda. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Right. For those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting is about to be adjourned actually, but move into confidence after that and the live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting. Thank you, councillors. Back here by 12:25.